Hey, thanks for coming along on this episode of Our American Travel. We really do appreciate it. In this episode, we're going to tell you about our 5 top things to do in Natchez, Mississippi. That's not necessarily everyone's top 5, but it's the top 5 things that we did in Natchez, Mississippi. So,
it's about the only 5 things we did in Natchez, Mississippi.
well, we went to the cemetery. We did a couple of things that, we're not talking about in this, but, we did some walks along the Mississippi and so forth, and we're not really talking about that here, but
it's amazing food.
It is steeped with history, steeped with lots of things, and hopefully you'll enjoy the things that we tell you about.
The first thing that we did when we were in Natchez, it's kind of what we did in Asheville. We went to the Natchez National Historic Park Visitor Center.
Sometimes it's just known as the Visitor
Center, right? Yeah, because I thought it was 2 different places, but it wasn't. If you look at the address, it's the same. So when you go in, they do have someone right there. It's a ranger who can stamp if you have a national park passport. They can stamp your passport.
They can do it in the gift shop too. They have a gift shop there.
Which we have, but at the time we couldn't find, and we found it as soon as we got home.
It was sitting in our truck.
Yeah, it was hidden in our truck. What I liked about it was that there was 2 locals there that kind of talked us through some of the things, kind of helped us make a plan.
Yeah, they gave us a place to go eat,
yes,
give us kind of a plan, things that we don't want to miss, and we'll go over a couple of those with you here. But I would definitely, if you don't go in there to see, there's some historical things in there that you can read about.
Yeah.
But just go in there and talk to the locals that work there, and they were very, very helpful.
Because we weren't sure, there's so many houses to go see, and we weren't really sure which were good to see, which ones weren't, and they gave us a really good plan that we were able to do in a day. Recommended some things, so that was probably my favorite part.
Yeah.
Besides the history stuff.
Right, and there's a lot of great history, and we're not going to talk about the Natchez Trace really. We drove on a little bit. There's a lot of great history to that about how the Kentucks went down, the river, down the Ohio River, down the Mississippi River, and then once the boat got there, before the steam engine, there's no real use for it, so they just basically broke it up and sold it, and then they walked back. To Kentucky from New Orleans, Natchez, and they used the Natchez Trace. It took them all the way back to Nashville, and then they could get to where they needed to go from Nashville pretty easily because there was, pretty modern transport, modern for the time, the 1800s. By 1810, there was about 10,000 people a year.
Visitor Center.
Well, it has something to do with the historic part of the visitor center.
Okay.
So, and they talk about that in the visitor center.
They do, okay. Cool.
Yeah, so I guess it has something to do with it.
Okay. You know what I remember about the Natchez Trace Parkway?
Couldn't find a place to go to the bathroom?
Yes. So we're like, oh, it's history. We love history. And then we had to go to the bathroom. So finally found a turnaround where we could
pull off and use our trailer. So anyway,
sorry.
There you go.
All these great facts.
Anyway,
and I'm like,
the first place to go is definitely to the visitors
that's what we would
center.
recommend. Yeah.
Hey, the second thing that we'd recommend do if you happen to be there, I think it's just on Saturday.
Only on Saturdays, but I searched the web and it looks like it's year-round.
So it's a pretty cool thing, and that's the farmer's market. There is just all kinds of,
I wrote down.
I don't know if it's farmers, but certainly people with produce. There's some artisans. There's some, that make different things. There's there's cooks. There's people that make soaps. A bunch of other stuff, right?
Yes, I was like, you've got farmers, and I did read that you can't buy it and then resell it. You have to be the one that either grew it or made it. It's come straight from the person who did it to the person who buys it.
And so it's not a third party deal.
It's not, and they're only open from 8 to 12, and they're located. I didn't know it was called the Bluff.
The Bluff. It's right there on a walk along the Mississippi River.
Right, and there's tons of parking. We saw honey. Somebody had beignets. A lot of different baked goods stands.
We bought some keto biscuits because I'm trying to watch my carbs, and they were excellent.
Soaps and lotions. Lots of different types of crafts. Seems like there were flowers too, weren't there? Flowers?
Yeah, I think there were flowers as well.
Okay.
I don't remember if there was any meat products there.
I don't either.
But it was definitely worth the time. Kind of to see the people walk up and down and enjoy themselves along the farmers market there.
Yeah, it was good. Oh, and we went there because the people at the visitor center recommended
That's
it.
exactly right.
Yes, because we would have never known about it if they hadn't told us. That's why you go to the visitor center, right?
Absolutely. Hey, the third thing we're going to talk to you about is one of the mansions we went to see. And the next three things of the five are going to be mansions, because you go to Natchez and what you do is you go to see these antebellum homes, and they were phenomenal. And we picked three. They helped us at the visitor center again.
Yeah.
Pick these three.
Because you can get a ticket to see all three and get a discount.
Yeah, there was kind of like a package price to go see these three, and they all take an hour, hour and a half. The little bit of the problem is the reason you can't do much more than three in a day is that you have certain tour times, and while it's an hour, then it takes you a little while to get to the next one, so you can't see it in the next hour. You got to, it's almost like 2 to 3 hours apart in some cases, so you can't see them all. But this is Stanton Hall. Yes. Stanton Hall is gorgeous, and it was pretty close to downtown. Yeah. Pretty close to where the farmers market was. In fact, we walked over to it.
Yes.
We may have wished we didn't later because it was really, 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 really warm and humid.
But Stanton Hall is air conditioned. So
it is.
So nice. We walked into the gift shop where you buy your tickets, and oh my gosh.
Now, I think Stanton Hall was taken over by
the Pilgrimage Garden Club.
Yeah.
In 1940, and it is considered a complete restoration, so it's all completely done.
It's well done.
They have so many of the original things that were owned by the original family.
Who was the original family?
I didn't write that down. I can't remember his name. I'll leave a little note, whatever his name was.
It wasn't the Littles.
No, and it wasn't.
The other couple.
I didn't. Yeah, we'll write it down.
I think it was kind of survived the Civil War, but it was kind of like during the Civil War, there was a general that kind of took it over as headquarters.
No, that was the next one.
Okay.
That was the Rosalie. The reason I didn't know this, because I'm like, how did all these things survive? Because I grew up in Georgia, and it's because Natchez surrendered to the Union Army right away.
Early on in the process.
All of the men had already gone to fight elsewhere, and it was just full of women. And
you have to kind of remember too that it's south of Vicksburg, where later a major battle took place. So think about the Union kind of controls part of the southern part of the Mississippi River, but they don't control part of more north in Mississippi. So interesting.
Yeah, but it's huge. It sits on a 2-acre lot. It's north of downtown, and it was all of these became huge financial burdens after the Civil War. So it actually became the college, Stanton College for young ladies. Was it? Maybe his name was Stanton. Maybe that's what it's called.
I think that's what it was, the Stanton family, but I don't remember. I mean, he was a cotton merchant as well. I believe, and most of them were at this time, so that's where their wealth came from. And they had some, and this house was finished in 1823, if I'm not.
You're right.
No, that's the Rosalie. It was 1820. This one was finished in the 1850s, and just before the Civil War. And then, of course, Civil War was fairly devastating to the cotton industry because labor supply changed. And
of course it should.
As it should, of course. And just, it's kind of devastating to, the Southern wealth, if you will. And so this ended up being sold and then ultimately taken over by this garden club, Pilgrimage Garden Club, and they've restored it.
But I've got to tell you, it's the coolest thing for me. A long time ago, before we were married, North and South, the big, huge, ginormous miniseries came out. And they actually filmed the interior scenes of the Southern family, which were called the Mains, and that was Patrick Swayze's
Patrick
character.
Swayze, yeah.
Yeah, the interior scenes of his mansion were actually filmed.
Was Kirstie Alley?
Yeah, but she was from the North, and she was an abolitionist, and she hated him. And then the girl from Jeannie, she was from General Hospital. She was Patrick Swayze's, y'all don't care, sister, and she married his best friend.
I'm not sure I care.
So I don't either. But I thought that was cool, and I wanted to let's see if Netflix has this, but nobody has it except for Amazon Prime, and it's outrageously expensive to rent. So it was filmed there. The exterior scenes were filmed from a mansion in Charleston, but interior was there. And what I liked about it is we were the only ones that toured the house. So that
Yeah, we got there relatively. I mean, it was
Relatively
one.
early,
It was one of the first tours. I think it was the first tour of the day, like 10 o'clock, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
It's like 10 o'clock.
They
One of
weren't
the first.
even ready to take our money.
And they weren't quite ready.
Yeah.
And yeah, had some problems with the credit card machine, whatever. And so we had the guide by ourselves, and this is the guy that did some of the other houses as well, and very knowledgeable. Been doing it for a bunch of years.
Stuff.
I think, in fact, he's tried to quit 2 or 3 times, and they won't let him quit. So.
Plus, he was a craftsman. He built furniture, so he knew a lot of the things about the original furniture.
The restoration and the original furniture.
And like the family still lives. They live most of them in Arizona, and they still get stuff from the family. Because he showed us a set of china that had belonged to the mansion that they sent, and they were he's like, we're so excited to get this original china. And it's pretty cool to me because like I sell stuff in garage sales all the time, and I cringe to think of how many things my grandmothers I probably got rid of that I shouldn't have.
We would be millionaires.
So anyway, and I think because that was our first one,
Instead of
we could absorb it all because by the end of the day we were so full of facts we were overflowed. But
yeah, you can get a bunch of facts. One of the things about like going to Stanton Hall, the tour's about an hour and a half, and was it an hour?
I think it was about an hour.
About an hour. And you literally, though, you can go out to the gardens afterwards, go through going through the gift shop and all that. You could easily spend, 2.5, 3 hours at each one of these, but you can't get through very much in a day. Now, you could spend 3 or 4 days easily because there's so much that we didn't see. So Stanton Hall is a great place to go.
And it has a restaurant there. We talked about going there for lunch, but we wanted to go somewhere else that the people at Visitor Center had recommended. So, but yeah, they have a restaurant open for lunch and dinner. Okay, the next place that we visited was the Rosalie Mansion. It is located.
It's overlooking the Mississippi River.
It is, and southwest of downtown Natchez.
Yeah, and it's kind of a
beautiful location.
Kind of a strategic location. It's kind of up on the hill, and we're not really going to talk about this, I don't think. But down underneath, there's a place called Under the Hill where there's some taverns and restaurants, and a lot of people stopped and stopped there. There's a story about Mark Twain actually when he followed the riverboat. Stopped it Under the Hill. So
cool.
Anyway, it's right near, it's just above that.
But it was actually the headquarters during the Civil War. It was the U.S. Army headquarters from July 1963 on. The family, it was owned by Peter and Eliza Little. Peter Little, they told us, went somewhere out west. And then Eliza was allowed to stay there, and they protected they had a lot of the original furnishings also because the General Gresham wanted all of the belongings. They put them all in the attic. And one thing I forgot to say, we don't have any pictures because you're not allowed to take pictures on the inside of any. I don't know if the 3 that we were in, you couldn't take pictures inside. So. That's
right. And so we'll show you a few things outside because all of them are pretty nice on the outside.
Rosalie had some nice gardens. They host the Great Mississippi Balloon Race every October, which I think it'd be really cool to go back and see that. Cool. Yeah, all on the grounds of the Rosalie and Fort Rosalie, just right there.
Did you say that the Daughters of the American Revolution are the one that own this now?
I did not.
The one that run this. It went through, of course, the Littles went through some financial difficulties just like everybody else did that was in the cotton business or whatever. And so it changed hands 2 or 3 times, and then ultimately the Daughters of the American Revolution were bought it out, or at least
in 1938.
It was given to them, and
but
they were in charge of restoring it. What?
They had 2. The family that bought it, they adopted someone who had 6 children anyway, and 2 of the children actually lived in the house until their deaths, and they would give tours for the DAR. So that's pretty cool. So that one of the women was 101 when she died, and she gave tours and lived there upstairs.
So I would just say that it's probably one of the, it's a beautiful place, probably one of the most ornate things that you can see in Natchez.
Yeah, not as much as Stanton Hall, but pretty close.
Yeah. Stanton Hall's.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, they're both. They both have their place.
Yes, they do. They were good. Go see it.
So the next.
Or last top 5.
Last of the top 5, and the third mansion is the Longwood Mansion, located there in Natchez. It's a another historic home.
Very interesting.
Very interesting. An antebellum home. The construction started in 1859 by another family that had their wealth due to the cotton Dr. Nutt and his wife, Julia, right?
Yes, Julia.
And so they started construction in 1859. If you know a little Civil War history, 1860, 1861. Now we're right in the middle of Civil War. So in 1861, the construction kind of grinded to a halt, and it never really was finished.
And it's an octagonal house, so
Yes.
it's 8 sides, and it's the largest octagonal house
In the
in the
United
United States,
States.
according to everything we read. And it was supposed to originally have 32 rooms, but
But there's like 4 floors, and like
They were
only
never
the
finished,
first 2
yeah.
were kind of finished.
only the first one was finished.
Really, only the first
Yeah,
one.
9 rooms.
And so all the ones above never really got finished, and so it's just really brick and wood still.
Yeah, it looks gorgeous outside. You can see the pictures, and then we'll show you what the upper stories look like.
We took some pictures in there, right?
We did. They allow you to take pictures on the upper stories where it was unfinished. This one was not taken care of very well. Basically, as everyone did, the family went through hard times, and it kind of was abandoned and was neglected and abandoned. And finally, it was also bought by the Pilgrimage Garden Club. And I think it was like 1970 when it was bought.
Yeah, it was later on.
Yeah.
And then they began the restoration process again.
Right.
And
do you remember?
one of the things, something about when it was sold to them
that's
or
what's
given
nice.
to them or sold at a really cheap price, they had a guarantee that they wouldn't finish it.
Yeah, they had to promise that they would never
had to
finish
kind
it.
of stay in the historical state that it was in, because it began to be built in 1859, interrupted in 1861. They didn't want anyone to try to finish it at that point, and so that's kind of kind of held them back maybe from doing some things that they probably shouldn't have done. So
Yeah.
that's a good deal.
Oh, and one thing I thought was interesting too, they said that the workers got scared, and they because they were all from the north, and so they just like ran back home because the war was about to start, and they just left their tools laying on the ground. Because I found a blog post where a lady said you could actually see, you could go visit it and see the tools. They were there for a long time, but then somebody, they removed them. And also,
Go ahead.
it took more than 1 million bricks to build Longwood,
And they built them there, or they made the
They built
bricks
bricks
there.
They had us look because you could see some of the bricks. They had different markings on them because I believe that they were made by slaves, but they were paid extra by however many bricks they made. So they would put their marking on it so you could count the bricks. Then this Mr. Nutt was pro-union, and he owned 7 plantations, and I did read that a lot of his stuff was protected because he was pro-union, but they still couldn't recover financially.
Right. And as you can tell, there's a lot of information, a lot of historical information about these antebellum homes. This is 3 of the many.
Oh, yeah.
And so, if you've got time to spend, a few days there, you can dive into, probably a couple of these a day and be fascinated and be overwhelmed
Yes.
because we're overwhelmed with the information, and we were only there,
Yeah.
really one full day, a couple of nights and one full day. So.
And we had the second tour we were the only ones, but when we got to the Longwood, there were several.
Yeah, by the
other people.
afternoon,
Yeah, there were a lot
there
of people
were
on the tour.
it was a pretty good sized tour at that point.
One thing I read about this one, if you ever watched the HBO series True Blood, which I did not, the outside was used as the fictional Jackson, Mississippi mansion of Russell Eddington, who evidently was the vampire king of Mississippi and Louisiana. So I've never watched True Blood.
I had no idea.
I thought when I heard the word, I was thinking Fight Club. I don't know, but it's about vampires, I guess. So, but it's really, really interesting.
Again, lots of history in Natchez. Again, you could spend a lot of time there and probably still not scratch the surface historically.
And it was really hot, and all of these mansions had air conditioning.
So we really want to go back in the fall or the spring.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's
you
what I'd
can-
recommend you do if
Yes.
you're going to want to spend a lot of time there.
And you can go during pilgrimage. They have times where all of the houses are open, but there's a lot of people there, so you're not going to get, I don't think, as full of the experience, but it's a big, huge deal if you go during pilgrimage. And if you have been to Natchez and have any recommendations, if you could leave a comment for us, that would
That'd be
awesome.
great. Yeah,
Yeah.
some other things to see. Of course, there's a lot. There's, again, I was reading earlier, some people wrote about Natchez, and you could talk about the African American Holocaust, really. The things that happened in the South down there and near there. So there is a tremendous amount of information that you can learn by going to Natchez.
Yep.
And there's a good place to eat too. Thanks for coming along on this journey to Natchez, Mississippi with us.
What you did there.
What?
Journey.
Journey.
It's all about the journey.
It's all about the journey. Thanks for coming along. And we certainly do appreciate it. We'd love it if you would like and subscribe to our channel. That way you can help us grow it. And we also would love it if you would hit that notification bell. Ding, ding. She tries to harmonize with me, and then I just mess it up.
I was trying to match your pitch.
Yeah, she's trying to match my pitch or whatever you call that. I don't even know what that means. So anyway, thanks for coming along. Remember, it's all about the journey to infinity and beyond.